Morning, everybody, and welcome back to the segment on this channel where we bring you a higher perspective on business. Today's discussion is brought to you by Fortraiture as well as FortressLens.com, and I'm your host, Trey. Subscribe to this channel, follow me on Instagram on Mr. Fortress, Fortress Lens, and Fortraiture. Also check out my website on www.fortresslens.com. And I have a special guest today. He is a business professional, a musician, a drummer, a music producer, as well as a writer. What's going on, Cameron?
Doing well. How are you, sir?
Man, I am good. I'm good. Good to hear your voice. It's been a million. It's been a long time.
Yes.
I know you've been very, very busy.
Been very busy.
So you're writing now? Book author, or what you writing? What you working on?
Really just more business stuff. But as far as the music, just kind of honing in on the pen skills, because that's a requirement for the stuff that I'm trying to do. So
right,
that's where I'm at right now.
And just to deal with the elephant in the room, you got a song out on iTunes right now that you produce.
Yeah, it's a 7. Well, which one are you referring to?
All right, so I'm looking at the one, the recent one. I know you've been working on it for a while, but it finally came out. Is it after Next?
Yes, yeah. That's a 7-track EP with me and my good friend Norris Smith. Kind of grew up in high school together. Uh-huh. We've been doing music forever over the years. So it was just kind of one of those bucket list things that we both wanted to do, but for whatever reason, just never actually executed over the years. It just came down one day where we were just kind of talking with each other and got frustrated when it came to trying to find quality talent to work with who actually took the craft somewhat seriously.
Right.
And, we just got frustrated. We find people, we give them tracks, we go through the whole creation process and waste hours on hours, and all anybody wanted to do was just post IG clips and take pictures, and never wanted to finish producing a product. So it's just, we just got irritated and tired to say, do it ourselves, because we know we can do it better. We just, we're trying to do what we do best and create and construct and allow an artist to come in and do their thing. But, we just weren't gifted with quality talent over the years who took their craft serious. So we just decided to do it ourselves. So that's kind of where we're at.
Exactly. So what's up with that? It's either a two-way street, right? Either you get somebody who's committed, and most of the time those that are already committed are already in the industry, like blazing in, and then you have those that are somewhat committed, but because they are, I don't know how to coin, is it laziness, that they want everything crafted for them, they want and they want to be spoon fed, you know what I mean, to where you Cameron, you end up like, you produce the beat, right? You try and find a song that fits their voice or style. You go to the extreme case of actually writing the lyrics to the song that they're singing and coaching them in the studio as well. What has happened, man? What's happened to talent now?
Well, a couple of things. There are those select few who do have like an amazing gift and they do take it serious, and those are the ones who typically are in the industry or, are in that circle per se, or on the cusp of being in the industry. But the thing that I've noticed is the ones that have the most talent are typically the ones who are the laziest. Why that is, I'm not sure, but just from my personal experience, it's the ones who really do have a unique tone, a unique gift, and definitely are head above heels when it comes to talent, are the ones who have the least amount of drive because they rely on their talent to get them through and to open doors. But typically the ones who have lesser talent have more drive. So it's a double-edged sword, it's catch-22. But the older I get and the more kind of focused I get and the more I learn with the music stuff on the technical side, I'd rather take the person with less talent who has a more of a drive to succeed or to get themselves out there. Because there's just more upside because they're putting in the time to get where they want to go.
Man, you've been doing this music thing for a very long time. I've known you now. I was reflecting on this last night. I've actually known you for over a decade.
Yeah, I think so. It's been just about that.
Yeah, man. It's been a while. And the funny thing about it is that you always had music then. And you've never followed. I mean, most people come in the music industry, they stay with it. It works out. It doesn't work out. They blow up. They don't blow up. And then you have those that just like it's embedded in their DNA. You just stick with it, man. You've always done. I mean, you do multiple things, and I mean, this podcast centers on business owners such as yourself. And I know you have multiple streams of income. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the music part, regardless of whether you've had successful artists like this, this gentleman, I forget what's his name, N. Smitty.
His real government name is Norris Smith, but N. Smitty.
Yeah. Okay. So whether you have successful artists like that, or stuff in your archives, you've always like stayed with the game, whether or not you deal with the beasts or the mice. I don't know, and you don't discriminate. But you've always stayed. You stayed the course. You've always done the music, and you've done it to perfection. You know what I mean? And believe it or not, let me tell you something that you probably forgot. You shared a whole lot of beats, man, from 10 years ago. I don't know if you still have them in the archive, huh?
I have no clue.
You said
I made so many I couldn't even.
Dude,
I'm sorry.
In fact, one of the beats that's playing right now is from your archives that we're running over this podcast that's playing in the background.
Oh, Lord, don't play no old stuff, man.
No.
Musicians like, get that old stuff out of here, man.
Man, no, I wouldn't select anything that wouldn't fly. Trust me, man. So that's the thing. The beat that's playing in the background was produced by yours truly, Cameron, right there. I mean, obviously, you have better stuff now because over time you always evolve, right? I get that.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that I know about you, man. I mean, you're a drummer, right? Your music, right? What is let's talk about the science. Let's talk about the science of drums. The attacks, the release. I know it might be too complicated to say it in one sitting.
Oh no, I can go there.
But if you were to talk to somebody who does not understand getting that nice thump in music, you know what I mean? When you're talking about the mix, when you say the drums sit in the mix,
right.
When he takes over, and I know, without going too far, the drums are the backbone of every song. The drum set has to do all the music before the music comes in, and then the vocalist is just there in a bed that's already made. So what is the science, man, behind drums?
Okay, so here's my personal, like, how I approach drums.
Okay.
So when I was younger, I used to think, okay, drums were the most important piece. That's what I was kind of taught or introduced. You hold the beat, you lock in, you put pocket down.
Right.
You don't waver. If you suck, the whole band sucks, period. Right. But the older I get, application plays a huge role in drumming and drums in general, whether they're live drums or produced drums that you hear in most contemporary pop, alternative stuff, or whatever. But sample selection is key. For drums, tones and fidelity and dynamics is everything. If you have a crappy quality selection of patches or drum samples, mm-hmm. or drums that aren't tuned appropriately to the pitch and key of the music, then it's not going to get it. really sonics are huge, and drums play a huge role in that. You have to be very cognizant of the type of music that's required or that's being asked of you as a drummer to play, and then really finding what tone or style or pitch of drums that's needed to make it really work to where it really supports the music, but it doesn't undercut the lyrics or the content of the artist who has, who's singing.
So basically, it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of discipline, so you don't over thump a person. Like, yo, check it out. I got skills. I got drum skills, and I'm gonna loop I'm gonna be everywhere. You're gonna hear them drums
it
from,
takes time.
from all over.
It takes time to develop to that. Years. There are some phenoms, and a couple of people who just have it. They got the it factor, but more times than most, that's a skill set that has to be developed over time, and there's no easy way around it. You really have to put in the time to kind of understand the technical side of playing the drums and being in a band or producing drums. I hear a lot of guys who are musically inclined. They can play 50 different instruments, but they're monsters live in a band on stage, but you ask them to produce a track and it's trash, right? So it's two different disciplines. Music theory always plays a part in both sides, but you definitely have to develop an ear of what sounds audibly correct and what is required for the piece of music that you're trying to produce.
All right, so how do you give advice to somebody? All right, because I hear a lot of producers out there, or I'm using that word loosely, who would take a 808 drum, right? Put it in there and put some reverb on a drum, and then you have a hit. A snare, a rim shot, and it's dry. So one component is reverbed, one component is dry. Another has sounds like it's in a cathedral. Yet another sounds like it's in a bathroom. Do you put all those things into account when you're creating in the production side?
It's all subjective. And yes and no. Depending on the type of music, if I'm doing kind of really big stadium alternative type stuff, yes. Like a lot of reverb, heavy compression, loose EQ it's required for that style of music. But it just depends on what I'm putting together. Now, one thing that's heavily influenced the quality of my production is understanding the engineering aspect of music, to support the production. The older I've gotten, I've realized kind of less is more. And when you understand sonics and tones, and you really understand the principles of engineering, you can manipulate a lot of these sounds and utilize these plugins or outboard gear and hardware to really get a quality, lush, professional, thick sound that you can still hear everything through, but not lose any fidelity or have to over-process something. Just explain
that. Explain that to somebody who doesn't understand. You have all these sounds, right? I've seen people use 64 channels of sound, and you hear every part of every sound that was played in there. And then you turn around and you have somebody with 4 channels, or rather 6 channels, you know what I mean? And they fail to pan and balance sound to where it's muddy.
Right.
And you hear maybe the vocals are over there. And then you fail to hear another vocalist because it's all drowned in there.
So here's the thing. In music, there are 4 major disciplines that all are dependent, interdependent. So they all operate separately because it's a separate discipline of skill set and terminology and application, right? Mm-hmm. But they're all dependent on each other because they all play a necessary role in achieving the perfect product, right? So you have your producer who arranges or puts together the music, okay?
All right.
Now, whatever that may entail, you know, scoring, composing, whatever that is, then you have your mix engineer, or you have your artist and your band or whatever, lead singer, whatever that may be. Then you have your recording engineer. They ensure that when the music is being recorded or laid down, that the parts are in perfect time, nothing is too loud, everything is synced up where it needs to be. The dynamics are placed correctly, the ad-libs are there. So when they're recording, they have the best product they can get while they're in the process of recording each part of the song. Then you have your mix engineer. They come in after and look at the landscape of the project, and they say, okay, this needs to be turned up. This needs to be turned down. This needs to be spread out to where you have a very large, wide field or spectrum of sound. This needs to be compressed more. It seems like it's too loose. It needs to be tightened up towards much more crisper. Okay, once they get their levels right and they do their process and procedure when it comes to mix engineering, which is a whole separate discipline, then you go to your mastering stage. And that's where all of the sonics and the technical side of frequencies and understanding what frequencies need to be embellished, what frequencies need to be cut out, what frequencies need to be rolled off. That's more of a technical aspect. So if you notice, there's a pattern. It starts with creation and then it slowly moves to technical. So there's much more than just making the music. But with me, I have really, for a period of time, I stopped producing for a while and actually focused on the engineering aspect of it so I can understand the other disciplines of music. And once I started to understand sonics and frequencies and the technical side of it, it affected how I produced, because now I'm able to pick samples and patches and sounds and different instruments that fit well together from a sonic perspective based off of, I need drums here, and I need a keyboard here, or what kind of keyboard, what type of piano. Do I need a cathedral piano? Do I need a grand piano? Do I need a studio piano? Do I need a jazz piano? There's different levels to it. So once I started understanding the sonics of it, it dictated how I produced. So now when I look for a kick sample or an 808, I'm looking for a specific type of 808 that sits in a certain frequency range. So I don't have a bump or a clash with the kick drum. If I'm using like an 808 and a kick, which are two independent sounds, but if they're in the same frequency range, you're going to get a lot of what's called phasing. So I don't want to get too technical because this isn't a class. But go ahead, because you know what that does? It lays a foundation for somebody to actually learn and then go and research what you just said. So don't hold back punches. You may be speaking Chinese right now, but somebody's gonna. It may take some time, but it'll lay a foundation on it. Right. I mean, so I'm not like super old, but I'm not young either. But when I was really digging into this stuff, there was no YouTube. Right. And the access to information wasn't as convenient as it is now. So if you wanted to learn something, you really had to put in the time and put yourself in a position to be around people who knew something. You know what I mean? Right. Be able to discern if they knew what they were talking about or if it was just a bunch of BS, That is true. Like nowadays, it's so much easier to learn the tricks of the trade and to understand the concepts, because you have videos that's like, for instance, you can Google parallel compression or YouTube parallel compression, what that is and how it's applied. Okay. And 10,000 different people explaining the same thing.
Right.
But through the course of watching 100 videos, a couple people is going to explain it in a way where it just clicks for you. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's what they're talking about, right?
Right.
And then once you understand the concept, it's a lot easier to apply because now you understand what it's supposed to do, right? And now you start learning the difference between, okay, no compression, with compression, without compression, parallel compression, with and without that. And then the differences of how that sounds based off of how you manipulate, you know, those type of mixing tips and tricks and all that good stuff.
Wow. Now that's deep.
Yeah. So the rabbit hole goes very deep.
That's
why
deep.
It's one of those things, you know, you can take the blue pill or the red pill, but it's
but like you said, less is more, and one bite at a time. It's actually better for somebody to learn the concept and come up with a okay production as opposed to somebody who learns everything and then tries to apply everything in that production, and then it sounds like, okay, well, what's going on here? Right.
Well, you have to start first with the art, which is creating the music. You have to start there.
Right.
If you don't, you're going to overwhelm yourself with so much information and technical expertise. You'll miss the whole point of what it's meant to do. And I know a couple of people like that who, like, technically they understand this stuff night and day. They can explain it, but they don't have the ear to hear the difference. Right. and that happens a lot, but you don't learn or develop the ear until you go through the creative artistic
You are listening,
phase.
but you're not hearing.
Correct. Exactly.
Wow.
So it starts with the create. You have to go through that frustration of learning how to create and being content with creating what you feel that, you know, you want to create, and then based on the skill set that you have and how much you're willing to develop.
So is it something that you can actually master, or rather research? Is there a recipe to say your drum set, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your kick. Is there a frequency that it sits on that you can, at least for lack of better knowledge, master the frequency to where you get it right most of the time, as opposed to searching? At the end of the day, I know it's an art, and art is subjective, but the fundamentals, though, right? Like, for example, what would you say? Let's say since we're like, this is a podcast and we're targeting film music producers who are more so in the filming, right? Emotional sounds, movie theater, cinematic sounds, right? That emotional a drum pattern, that when it thumps, man, it sinks deep.
Right.
How is that formulated?
You still have your artistic creative phase of it, understanding what the scene calls for and knowing what types of sounds best fit the mood of the visual, right? Because I've done scoring too. So, that's the first aspect of it. Pretty much, eating up the visual, understanding what type of mood is it telling me that I need sonically for the music to back it. Once you understand that, then you have to ensure that you're not just pulling and picking patches just off of any random software that you Googled or downloaded that's cracked or whatever. You really do have to invest in your craft. These softwares are sampled and resampled at like the highest bit rate and the highest, resolutions, and you really have to understand what are industry standard go-tos when it comes to quality of what you're using. That makes a huge difference even in your mixing and your engineering. If, there's an old, saying, you can't polish a turd, when you put out a piece of crap, you can only clean it up so much. It's still going to be a piece of crap.
Right.
So when it comes to making sure you're picking the right types of samples, the right types of patches, you want to make sure they're of the highest quality you can possibly get them at, because that makes the engineer's job that much easier. That makes the mastering engineer's job easier, and it makes your job easier as the producer, or or the executive producer, whatever title you go by, because now things seem to sonically fit better because they're not clashing with each other, because they're at such a high quality. Just the simplest chords will sound amazing in a high fidelity treated room using high quality instruments versus a patch playing the same 4 chords that you get off of a cracked version software that you downloaded from Google.
Right.
You know what I mean? it can be night and day, and you're playing the exact same thing.
Right.
And sometimes that just does make the difference.
So how would you produce a sound like this, right? Give an example. I just kick on the drum, boom, right? I got that thump. Nice, it's great. But I wanted to sound like I just dropped a dead weight in a carpeted wood, like a wooden floor with some carpeting. That thump, it's heavy, right? I obviously recorded it just a regular kick, boom. Let me make a thumping sound, right? But then it comes off as if I just dropped a dead weight, and it thumps, right? Giving it that panicky type effect. Like frequencies, what are we talking here?
So here's my take on it. When I want something that has that really just socket to you in your chest to where you feel that thump and it hurts, right? Per se. What I'll do is I'll layer my kicks. So I'll typically use 2 to 3 kicks, preferably 3, and they're all going to target 3 specific frequency ranges. Okay. So I'll have my low end sub, which is 40 to 50K on my low end, right? So that's my sub range, anything in like a 808, Lil Jon type,
So it stays on that type. 50, or it has a range?
50 to 40, yes. There's 50, a range.
Okay.
50 to 40 for my sub range. So that's my deep 808s. Okay. Then my second kick, the peak of that kick will target the 50 to 80K. So that's going to give you the hard hit in your chest, okay? But it's going to be pronounced to where you're going to hear it in your mids and your low mids. And then I'm going to have what I like to call like an FX kick. So that's your top end kick. So say you're playing it on a cheap pair of Bluetooth speakers or something that can't hold a lot of low end. Then you'll still be able to hear the kick through that as well. And that'll concentrate on your highs, your tweeters, and your mid highs and stuff like that. It'll kind of touch on those, 1K, 2K, depending on what type of kick you're using, range. But the mid really will range between like 50 to 100. If it's in the 200, you can, but that's just subjective on the type of music. But typically, those are the 3 definitive frequency ranges that I.
And does that factor in sharing space in the audio spectrum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They all should have their own room in the house. Okay. Now, are they going to cross frequencies with roll-offs and stuff like that? Typically, possibly, yes. But as long as you can control that and taper it off to where they're not overlaying each other too much, then you'll be in a very good spot. You'll have more dependent control or independent control of each type of kick. So that way, once you put them all together, they're not going to clash and create phasing, right? So once you have those kicks and you've EQ'd them to their appropriate or respective frequency ranges, now you can start adding compression. So you EQ first before you compress? Yes, that's my.
Because you want to take away certain frequencies.
The sound of that.
Okay.
Right. I like to clean it up.
Okay.
So pretty much, say you have like a big pile of dough that you want to make a pizza with. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to trim the fat, cut the edges, shake the dough.
Okay. That's
what EQing is. You just have a blob of dough.
Right.
You know, EQing is rolling it out and cutting off the edges, making it whatever shape you want to make it. When I hit the compression stage, typically the compressor, what that does is it tightens up a lot of the frequencies within that sample. So it sounds more direct, it sounds sharper, it's shorter, and it sounds thick, right? But when you compress, you lose a little something, you lose artifacts in that sample.
The dynamics go.
The dynamics go. So a technique that I like to use is parallel compression. So it's a combination of the original raw signal and an over compressed signal.
Whoa.
So pretty much you'll do a duplication of the track, or I really don't prefer duplicating it, but pretty much creating an FX bus an FX bus with a compressor that you like how it moves or how it responds, and you pretty much over compress that kick and turn it up. And then you add this into your original kick, and you can control the blend between the fidelity that you originally started with the clean kind of cut EQ sound, but you start adding in the thickness of the over compress, and then you find what blend works between those two, you know, volume wise, you know, what's too much compression, what's not enough, but you'll still have the loudness and the clarity of your EQ cut, but you'll have that thickness and that hard, full sound of the parallel, the over-compressed signal of the same kick. And then you'll do that for each of the three kicks. So essentially, you'll have like 6 signals for one kick, or for the 3 kicks. So it'll be 2 per kick, right?
Okay.
And then from there, it's, you know, understanding your room from in which you're producing or mixing, and then you kind of start leveling out and figuring out how loud it needs to be, and then understanding your equipment. Where that's where a lot of people kind of go wrong when it comes to, you know, beginners or intermediate producers. Like, they finally get the art of it to where they actually have a solid musical, you know, work.
Right.
And they'll do their little tweaks and all this stuff. And at home on studio monitors, it'll be like, yeah, this sounds amazing. And then they put it in the car or another system and it sounds like hot garbage, right? So it's not only, you know, creating, but you have to understand and learn your equipment.
So is it safer then to do a multi-band compression, perhaps?
No, not even that. Mm-hmm. Like I said, you know, the producer's only as good as the equipment he uses.
Right.
I don't care. That will hold true forever. Period.
What security what security can they have out of that? Because you know, you spoke the truth. This happens to a lot of people, right? You mix it beautiful. It's nice in the house.
Right.
You go to
you have to train your ear to your environment. So if you don't have a treated studio and you don't have the money to afford to be able to, you know, build one from scratch and treat the walls and soundproof the ceiling and, you know, deaden the corners and do all of this stuff, right? You have to really rely on reference tracks to understand where your frequencies hit in your environment. Every room is different, so you have to learn your space where you work the most. And once you start learning, okay, from this perfect reference track that I kind of have as the gold standard, the hi-hats always sit here, right? And you have to kind of start learning how to match where those frequencies are going to hit in the room that you work in. But you have to understand your equipment too, because sometimes these guys will get speakers that, you know, they'll be on sale, or like M audios, you know, that's like the gold standard in entry level, home studio speakers.
Hey man, some
They're
KRKs,
cool.
some KRK.
Right. Some of these speakers, like, they're loud. They sound good. They're pristine, but they're not true. Right.
Okay.
So they're, all those little buttons and extra knobs on the back of the speaker, excluding the volume knob, they mean something.
Right.
And you have to learn what that stuff means. A lot of it has, like, where it'll be like a 2 dB bump, and you'll have a little switch that goes up, and then it'll be a flat line that says 0. And then it'll be a dip that goes down that says 2 dB dip. So, that means, okay, in this frequency range, whatever it's stated on the back of that speaker, it's going to boost the volume 2 decibels in between 500 and 100, right? So that means it's louder than normal, because it gives you the option to compensate on your room dynamics. But, or you can dip it down if you don't have a lot of acoustic, paneling and stuff to really soak up and deaden the sound. You can dip that frequency range, so you won't get that bounce back as much.
So most of the music now is consumed on smartphones, right on the go.
Right. Hi-fi, high fidelity based.
Okay.
Stuff. And there is a technique where, when you're in your mixing phase, some engineers do a sub mix on like Apple AirPods, because most music is consumed on a typical headphone.
Man, I did old school to where I reduced the volume to its lowest and mix there in case, and hopefully it plays well on people's small little radios.
Right, and that's not an old school technique. That's something I still do.
Okay.
I mix at low sounds because I want to make sure I have enough headroom to be able to add certain plugins and limiters and maximizers and not get that raspy, scratchy sound when I start pushing the volume, the envelopes on, really making the track louder after it's appropriately mixed. So yeah, that's a technique, and that's going to be a staple of solid engineering. You have to mix at low volumes, otherwise you're not going to be able to accurately hear where these frequencies are hitting or where they're dipping out.
So with the frequencies, is there a mathematical equation to where you say, I will give this plate the range of 50 to 80 for the lows, basically the kick? I'm going to give the hi-hats this range.
The sound or the sample will tell you that.
Okay.
That's not something that you dictate.
Okay.
If you use a hi-hat and you put it on a graphical EQ and you kind of see where the peaks of that sample hit, it's going to tell you exactly where the tone of that specific sound resides. That's not anything that you can say, like, I want it to sit here. If you want it to sit in, for instance, if you have a kick, since we're talking about kicks, if you have a kick that resides in the 50K range, but you needed to have more of a punch on the 80 to 100K, then that sounds like you need to change your kick. You can't force something to be something it's not.
Right.
You can refine what's there, but you can't change the character of that sample. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's not going to work. You have to find something where it naturally resides in a specific frequency range. Right. And sometimes that makes all the difference in a track that just feels good and something that just you can't quite put your finger on, but it seems a little forced. But you just can't. You really just determine just like it's a good track, but something just doesn't sound right. I don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Right. And it's sometimes just things like that. Some engineers.
So something I've been working on, Cameron, is minus the music part. I do a lot of YouTubing, and it's given me the platform to actually try and master vocal, basically dialogue mixing, which is crucial when it comes to filming. Right. Now I'm going to your filmmakers out there. So in knowing that my voice is not really a talker type voice, I don't have a radio voice. I may try and fake it, you know, and then go and post and try and find those frequencies that bring it up a little bit more. What tips can you offer somebody who does not have, say, your voice for the radio voice? Right. To try and have those frequencies. How do I research my voice to say, okay, these are the frequencies that complement my voice for radio? Because I have a singing voice, I know that's for sure, but not in a dialogue type voice.
Right. So the best thing you can do is everybody has different characteristics of their voice that make them sonically unique. Right. So those things you can't fake, you can't change. You know what I mean? They are what they are. That's why some people are radio, legends. Right. Not because of what they say, but because of the tone of their voice. Right. Period. So when it comes to people in your position who's kind of looking to get as close as you can to that gold standard, the best thing to do is enhance what makes your voice unique. And that's really just understanding the engineering behind mixing, because even though you're not recording a song, it's more dialogue and it's real time, but you can still put in the cycles or put in the reps and understanding, okay, what EQs respond better to my tone of voice. Right. And this is something that took me a couple of years to really dial in, as far as like, okay, this EQ responds differently than these other two. Right. I like the way my voice sounds using this EQ. Exactly. And it's the same thing with compression. The algorithms and, the technical, number stuff behind the compressors and all those knobs and buttons and stuff that you see on a lot of these plugins. Like, that stuff is different from one plugin to the next. So you have to go through them and develop your own custom personal chain of plugins or hardware gear that makes you sound better, or something that you can be content with.
That sounds great.
But I will say, recently, I've been digging more into analog hardware and more outboard gear.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because I've been trying to invest in that, but then the fear is probably lack of knowledge. You know what I mean? We're in this new age, right? So I'm like, well, do I want to capture a sound already mixed, or is there a way? I'm sure there's a way to dual record to where you have this mix how you want it pre-produced as post. So how do you? What security do you have in taking that? Because it's a risk at the end of the day. Because you flop.
There is no security, and it is always a risk. This is where the love of the craft comes into play, because being in this field, you're going to make some investments that might not be the best call, and you have to chalk it up as a learning curve. Now, here's the thing. With hardware and outboard gear like rack mount compressors and rack mount EQs and preamps for mics and stuff like that, they typically hold their resale value fairly high.
No, that's true.
So something I used to do was, I buy a piece of gear and I'll play with it for a couple months, or even a couple weeks, just depending on how much time I had on my hands. And if I liked it, I kept it. If I didn't, I'll resell it on top of the line reseller website. Well,
that's one thing I need to learn to do, because I'm a hoarder.
Right.
I got mics and mics and mics and mics and mics and mics, but it's like, okay, I don't need that.
Find the mic. No, you don't. I mean, it's good to have a library of stuff, depending if you're doing music like that, to where it's like, okay, if I have an R&B singer, I need this mic. If I need a rap, if I have a rapper, I need this mic. Now, if I have an alternative, a band or rock singer, then I'm going to need this mic. There are specific mics for different genres of music, because that's what it's constructed to bring out those characteristics.
Exactly. Okay.
But when it comes to compression and all of that stuff, the hardware is the same regardless of sound industry and all of that. You just have to figure out what hardware works best with your
that's
voice.
True. That's true. It's funny because of all the mics I have, right? Like right now, I'm actually recording on, it's a Shure SMB 58.
The big fat, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm running it on a cloud lifter, right, to try and get that clean sound, maximize, boosted, right, minimizing all the impedance and noise and all that stuff. I get that, and I find that obviously the cloud lifter does not work with most microphones, right, and I know the Shure mic is not the best, right. What?
No, it's not the best.
Right. But then for some audio, it's become the preferred radios, and they all, everybody. Yeah. So it's like,
this is where you have to start getting technical. Okay, well, why do radio hosts and places who do pods and stuff prefer this mic? Well, technically, why is this one set apart from any other condenser mic? Those are the questions you have to start asking yourself, and then figuring out the answer. Right. So you have to put in the time. You have to put in the research and digging and understanding. What about this mic? Why is everyone calling this one out in comparison to an AKG Perception or a XML $99 mic? What makes this mic different in comparison to those for radio? Now, typically for that mic, it's because it has a low gain threshold where you can preamp the crap out of that mic and get a quality signal. So the gain is not high at all. Naturally, if you just plug it straight into an interface or
it's super low. Is that what makes the cloud lifter? Basically, other microphones, like for example, let me look at this. I'm looking at this is a Rode mic, right? Forget the technical, but it's a studio mic, the Rode for vocals.
Okay.
It definitely won't work with the cloud lifter. Is it because it's already high gained?
Yeah, because most Rode mics are meant for field work. So it has to be high gain to pick up distance. Rode got their name based off of how far can I hear with a bullet mic. Range is where they got their threshold into the game. So you have to have a high gain threshold in order to boost those signals to be able to pick up from 300 feet away.
Right.
You see what I mean?
And then what makes you fail? What makes the cloud lifter fail on that?
Impedance and signal input. I don't really mess with cloud lifter because that's not something that I utilize in my space of music. Right. I'm into plugins and stuff, and just to be clear, rolling back on the micro. Remember, I said SM58. It's the handheld performance microphone. But you went to the Shure, the SM7B. 7B, yeah, right. That's the big
right. Exactly. What do I call it? The coffee. Right. You know what it is.
That's the podcast / radio.
Right.
That's the one Big Boy in the Morning uses. Like all of these guys.
Little 400 microphone, and it's great. I mean, the sound is clean. It pushes real hard. But for some reason I tested that one with the SM58. And it's almost similar.
Right. So the SM58 is an omnidirectional condenser mic.
Right.
So you have more versatility, and it captures a bigger frequency. It has a better sweet spot. You know, the range is a lot wider on that mic.
Right.
So you have more freedom to, you know, for people with different tones and different styles of voice, why it's categorized as a vocal singing mic, because the spectrum of what it can capture is a lot wider in comparison to some other mics.
And it's designed for vocals, basically, the vocal range, the vocal frequency.
Mic.
Right.
Right. That's a workhorse mic. You can draw durability. Shores, oh my gosh, you can kick those things a quarter mile down the street, pick it up, and the capsules might be a little scratched up. But
that is true. That is real.
SM57, you know, the bullet mic.
That's true.
That's a drummer standard when it comes to live miking on drums.
Oh, really?
Especially if you're gigging. Heck yeah. I have them on my set. When I'm recording live drums, my overheads are SM57s. They're flat. I do have to boost them and kind of, you know, do a little more on post. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to the value, but I understand some mixing principles. So I know how to get the sound I need to get out of those mics, but I don't have to spend $500 per overhead to do it. You know, that's the catch-22. The more you spend for a mic, the less work you have to do on the post.
That is true. That is 100% true. And I'm still paying a heavy price, because I'm like, I spend a little bit more time on the post, right, to try and get that sound. But ultimately, I may have to suck it up one of these days and drop some money, man, on a better microphone that increases my workflow, because you want to go in and out, you know, publish stuff.
So here's the thing: it's a jacked up combo, but when it comes to vocal recording, regardless of what you're recording, you have to have a quality mic and a good preamp. You have to have those two things in tandem, or don't even waste your money purchasing either of them separately. It's just not worth it. Get them both at the same time or not at all.
Right.
It's just that important when it comes to establishing a high quality signal before it even hits your interface or your computer. Right. That's where the money's made. That's where the gold standard is set.
That is good, man.
How clean can you get that signal? How sharp can you get it before it even hits your computer? So that's where you got to concentrate. Now, there's a couple mics and preamps, or, you know, channel strips that work wonders. Like for me, my ear is tuned for like 90s R&B, right? So like that's where like Lush and Fidelity, like for instance, two artists who have the like most purest vocals and it's just super silky is Celine Dion and Babyface Evans. Okay. Now, the two things that those two individuals have in common is they use the same preamp or channel strip, which is the Avalon 737.
Interesting.
That's the one. Babyface actually has a modded version that Avalon has created with him, where it pretty much doubles the speed of the compression, because that channel strip is a rack mount is, the compressor is fairly slow, but it's meant for singing or singers, you know. But when you have a singer who pushes the pace on a more of a mid-tempo or up faster tempo track, you know, the compressor seems to lag back a little bit. But he has a modded version that's named after him for pretty much doubling the speed of the attack and the release on the compression of that channel strip. It's wild.
Wow.
Like, that's how much of a factor he is in the industry. But yeah, the Avalon, but that piece of gear, brand new, is like $3,000 just for that joint. But I tell you, if you want lush, pure quality signal, you know, that's the joint to have. That's the standard.
Now you bought it.
Like, you can find one used. Heck yeah, I bought mine new. I don't like no used stuff.
You buy a lot of stuff. You went to the NAMM show and you came out with a toy. What did you buy there?
So at NAMM, I don't buy anything at NAMM. NAMM is really, I do a lot of classes, breakout sessions, stuff where I actually sit down and listen to guest speakers and people in the industry talk and just spill the beans on whatever they want to talk about, whatever the subject matter is for that class or that breakout. But on the main floors, whether it's software, hardware, instruments, whatever, that's where you kind of get to see what all these companies are working on, the latest and greatest new projects. That's where they unveil their new series, their new lines of whatever they're selling. But this year, I actually bought two things. So one of them was Audio Technica. I can't remember the model, but something 350.
Oh, okay.
Right. The headphones, that was a game changer for me because I always had good mixes and I kind of learned my environment. But when I started hearing things in high fidelity mode, which with those headphones do, it gives a much truer sound of what that sample sounds like versus in studio monitors in an untreated environment.
Right.
And I would actually do my main original mix in my monitors, get the levels right, and then I'll throw in those high fidelity headphones and say, oh, I was way off, or oh, I was pretty close to where it needs to be. Right? So those headphones are amazing. Those headphones were like $350, okay? Definitely not cheap, but worth every freaking penny because high fidelity audiophile studio monitors, you can buy a pair starting at like $6,000, right? Right. So I'd rather buy a pair of headphones that gets me in the ballpark versus dropping $6,000 on a pair of audiophile speakers that I still won't get the true sound out of because I don't have a treated environment.
That makes sense, right?
So I get much closer to the headphones versus if I were to buy the speakers from my setup.
And you get that mobility too. You take them everywhere.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And then the other piece was the Korg Analog Mini Move XD.
Yeah, I was jealous of that
keyboard.
One. Yeah.
That joint analog kills digital any day of the week.
Sweet.
When it comes to artifacts and the fidelity of the patches and hardware, oh my goodness, it's night and day. Now, one thing I loved about that board was it integrated with Omnisphere, which is a go-to VST plugin that I use quite often when it comes to like creating and producing. So in Omnisphere, they pretty much have mini-mapped every envelope and filter and nuance of all of these hardware keyboards that cost an arm and a leg, right? So when you plug in the keyboard to the computer via MIDI, it automatically syncs and figures out what keyboard you have and all those buttons and knobs that are on like the Sub Fatty or the Mini Move or whatever keyboard you have. You can now manipulate and control those envelopes and stuff on the software too. So it's like the best of both worlds in one swoop. So I already had Omnisphere, but I didn't realize that they had MIDI patches for every major hardware keyboard that's out in the industry.
Wow.
You know, whether it's Korg or Roland or whatever, you know, they have it and it's mapped already. So I could run my cables. Yeah, I could run my cables analog and go straight to the interface and get that super lush, thick sound, or I can go through the software, which gets me super close to the human ear, to people who don't do this all the time, you wouldn't know the difference. Not at all.
Right.
But people who've been doing this, you be like, yep, that's analog. This one, you just takes time. You got to train.
It does. Now, I know you do a whole lot of things too, man. Not just music, not just production, not just songwriting, not this and that. You also do photography. How long has it been? Are you still into that, man? We haven't talked about photos.
I'm at the point to where I do about 1 gig a year just to make sure I don't lose the goods.
Right.
And I pretty much, I still have my company, but I outsource all the gigs to a team of people who actually go out and work the events.
Right.
I book them, take my cut off the top, and give them the rest. So that's pretty much how I'm operating now. That's not my main source of income.
Right,
so
right.
It's always good to have some money coming in, but
all the time, man. You know, you can always send that over, right? Fortraiture lands. You know. I think you gave me a gig. We did a wedding. I can't remember how long ago that was, man.
Oh dang, you did go with me on a wedding.
Yeah, man, we did a wedding together. Many moons ago. Many moons ago.
That was like your first. That was like blew your mind.
Man, it was at night, dude. It was like, you know what I mean? It's like night wedding, bro. It was like, come on. Right. Many moons ago, man. That was beautiful, though.
That's when you were getting back into photography.
Bro, that was when I was more professional, like on a paid side. Yeah. Right. But it was a long night, and you were multitasking. I think you were the DJ as well, doing the photos, and I mean,
because that's when I was doing it consistently. So
right, you still doing DJ as well?
Nah, negative. I'm
talk
cool
about multi-shelves. You're a multi-shelf company guy. I mean, you can provide everything. The only thing you needed to provide at that time was catering. That's the only thing you didn't. You know, you got sound here, photo here, video there.
That I didn't want to get into. I wanted to keep it strictly on the media side. So, and
you gave me business for the videography for somebody's party again. Man, I can't remember that guy's name. Great gentleman, man.
I can't remember. Yeah,
but his mom was having a jubilee, like, you know what I mean, and I went out there, shot the video. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, we came a long way. You just stopped. You stopped handing business over to me.
Man,
I don't know.
I stopped doing it. You know,
you just stopped doing it, huh?
Yeah, I concentrated my efforts into something that was a little more stable and lucrative. Right. For where
yeah, because that kind of business, it's seasonal. So it's never guaranteed. It's like it comes, it goes, and you can't really. I figured
out. Well, for me, it was year round. But I switched up what my target audience was based on the season. So when it hit wintertime and the weather started turning, I started concentrating more in schools.
Right.
So I was picking up more school events, doing DJ and doing, little dances, father and mother, dance and back to school night and winter formal and all of that stuff. So a lot of birthday parties during the holiday times, Christmas parties for companies, that's when that aspect really kind of took off. So from September to about February, that's when I made my money doing that stuff. And then, March to August, it's just open season again because the weather is clearing back up.
Right. So, well, you always had it mapped out, man. You always had the look for the money in either way, however way, money gonna be coming in, period. You know?
Yeah. I may not be like the fastest or the strongest, but I understand where my assets and my gifts are.
No, that's for sure.
Making money was one of them. So
that's true. Are you still into where's the IT at? Where you at with IT right now?
Before I started the Hayesville company, I was working for Hewlett Packard.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah, working with them in the private division on government contracts, doing business continuity and disaster recovery, failing over infrastructures in national disaster situations.
Right.
So that was cool on kind of like a data center level. But it was high stress because when something popped off,
I know it's all eyes on you. Yeah, right.
Nah, that part I didn't care for. The money was great. Worked from home. Ran out to San Diego and up north. I needed to go do stuff, but I wasn't happy doing that.
I can see that. I can see that. On a different level, I write those policies. Right. I think writing is easier when it comes to implementing. That's where the stress is. So the consulting
so many different subjective variables that can go wrong. And that will go wrong, and you got to have contingencies for A, B, and C, 30 different ways for every different person, because every person's skill set is different. And you got to count this person quitting, this person calling in, this person calling out, this person on vacation. All right, now who knows how to do this? Nobody. Oh, great. Okay.
Right. Redundancy. Why are we paying that guy when he's just sitting there? It's part of the plan. It's part of the recovery, the business continuity plan. Right. But not everybody understands that, right? Just cut.
Not at all. Yeah, man. Getting certified through DRI and all that stuff. That was just ugh.
Man, you sound like you need therapy. That came from the gut, man. You said it. You said it from the gut. I brought some post trauma. You went deep.
It was just information overload, and they expect you to pretty much just like retain it in a 4-day course to qualify to test for your certification. And it's just unfair, just the whole setup and how it works. Man.
Right.
It's like, this is tragic. But I think it was a little worse for me because I was new to the subject matter.
Right.
So I'm literally learning it for the first time in a matter of 4 days, and then I have to test and pass it to keep my job. Wow. So,
it's intense. It's intense.
That wasn't fun.
No, that's crazy, man. But I know we can talk for days. We're going to have to have a part 2, man, because we barely scratched the surface. We talked music this time. We might even go to filming and then go back to, I think, photography, because I remember you were Photoshop savvy type guy. So we could spend some little time and do that for the masses to consume out there. So much content to be made. You still do, huh?
Yeah.
Over Lightroom,
with my current business. Yeah. When I do gigs, that's the standard for photo, because I don't really. I try not to do video gigs anymore. But if I do go out on a gig, it's typically always photo. So Lightroom will always be a staple for me.
Yeah, touch and go.
I love Lightroom. I love it.
Yeah, I'm in love with Photoshop now. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, definitely not ideal for weddings, for sure. If you're editing 800 pictures, forget about it.
No, I cut it
about
down. When you hit a certain threshold and you have kind of a repository of events you can recall, I tell them I'll shoot 600 to 800, snaps for. But you're not having no. Yeah, but you're getting 20 to 30 edited.
Whoa, tops. That's basically for a book, right? So it looks like a wedding photo book.
For, print value. Whether they want to do a digital photo album or actually get.
Would you ever invest in a photo printer?
Nope.
You were
negative.
You sound like you already did that homework. You're like, no, thank you. Right.
Well, if you have a very lucrative media business and you're grossing, $5,000-6,000+ a month consistently at minimum, then it would be worth the investment of getting one of those commercial grade Konica Minoltas that can do everything, from business to actually photo printing to binding to, all of that stuff in one thing. Because this is just on a whole separate thing, but Konica, they've redone their whole approach to sales and marketing. And as my business at my office, I have one of those commercial grade, those big joints. But, I paid, what was it, $500-600 a month for it, but it's unlimited ink, for those big old toner cartridges, which is $200 to $300 a piece, right? And
right.
you know, I pay my monthly every month. I shoot out the 500, no problem. It's just what it is. But I get my use out of it. But if you don't have the cash income to support that bill, it would be worth it, or the space, let alone to have somewhere to put something like that. It wouldn't be worth it. But the smaller photo grade printers, they're cool, but those toner cartridges will eat you alive, bro. And it's not worth it.
That's true. That is so true.
You end up paying more to replace the ink than the whole printer is worth.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, especially like those
better
laser
outsourcing,
printers.
right?
Pictures are crispy. You use
Better
the little gloss photo paper or the flat, matte paper. Cool, comes out solid. But the printer's $500-$600, but you spending $800-$900 on ink. That's backwards to me.
Come on now.
This is just like common logic, like nah.
Ain't that the truth?
You're better off outsourcing it to Costco.
Yeah.
You get the same quality for pennies to the dollar.
Right.
You get an 8x10 for $2.50.
I don't like they put their Costco stamp in the back. Same as Walmart. I don't like that. Come on now, stop stamping it. Walmart in the back.
I would just tell people like, all right. So I'll edit it up and I'll resize it to where if you choose to print 8x10 for this image, then it'll come out the right dimensions. It won't be all like your face is cut off or somebody's hand is missing because, they're just printing out the raw and they don't have their dimensions correct.
Exactly.
So I'll edit the dimensions and resize them appropriately.
Right.
So the image fits for prints, but I'll tell them I don't do prints. You can take it wherever you want. I'll give you the copyright release for wherever you want to go. I'll sign it. I pretty much give everybody one to Walmart, Sam's, Costco, and Walgreens. As just like wherever you want to take it out of these four, you can make your own prints. That's on you. They're just ready to go for prints, but I'm not responsible for prints. I don't, that was a liability for me.
100%. Yeah, it's a lot.
Right.
If they don't colorize it right and then it comes out stained here and there.
Or the machine just bleeds. Right. The picture might be perfect.
Exactly.
Right.
The blue's a little blown.
Right.
Who took this photo?
Right.
It's got nothing to do with the photographer. It's just the technology that failed you right now.
So yeah, that's all we do.
Cameraman, it's been a wonderful time.
Oh yeah, it's been like an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, we've been going.
I know we can go on and on and on and on. And you're real, man. You're one of the realest dudes out there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do what I can, keep my head down, and keep moving, man. That's all. I don't like really talking too much.
And I'm proud of your success too. I'm proud of your success, which obviously is legit. Probably for another topic. Man, you are multi-talented. And that's motivating for a lot of people out there, because I'm always with the idea that you can do all things, really.
Oh yeah. Gotta put in the time. That's one thing people don't like to give up.
Put in the time. Right.
That sacrifice of doing something you don't want to do. Yes.
But yet they spend so much time watching movies and Netflix and stuff like that.
But that's things they want to do.
Right.
But it doesn't value them the same.
There's no value in it.
No. People aren't stupid. It's just a commitment thing, and a follow through. And that's the part that people don't like to address.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's a personal issue that everybody got to have their talk with themselves. So
how can people... Actually, you know what? Y'all follow Cameron on his social media?
Oh, Lord.
What you got on IG?
What is it? Seawells 33, 34? 33?
Oh, no. All right. I'll leave a...
Yeah, go put that in there. I don't even...
I'll leave a comment.
That's how much I don't even care, bro. So that's how much...
It's all good.
I don't even know my whole IG name. Seawells 34. I just looked it up on there. Yeah. Seawells 34.
Right. And if we get it wrong, it'll be correct in the description. It was great, man. Give us a big like on this channel if you like the content, the topic, subject matter. We covered a lot of topics, a lot of technical stuff. If you did not understand anything,
my bad.
Replay it and go and research.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's all about, sharing information.
Yes.
Because information is now readily available on all social platforms. And there is no excuse in this time and age to be unknowing. It's a time of knowledge.
Negative.
And you have people like Cameron here, man, sharing information for free. You know what I mean? Cutting all the, you basically cut the middleman. You don't have to go through multiple YouTube channels or college. You know what I mean? And spend $150,000, come out in debt.
That's a whole nother conversation.
I know.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Man, so, I know. I'm in pain, man, with that. But we'll talk about it another time, though. We should do this again very, very soon. Now I know you're busy, man, and you know
we just let me know. Well, now right now, COVID kind of got me at the crib chilling.
I know.
So
that's crazy. Matter of fact,
is the time to do it, bro.
You know what? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, pile it up right now, right? Might as well have a library before, do post production later on, but have a lot of compilation. All right, we'll do that.
Right.
Man, it's been great, Cameron. Definitely we'll do this sometime soon. But let me let you spend a little more time with family. I know you love that.
Right.
and apologize for me for tapping into their time. But
oh no, you're good. That's why I set it for 9 o'clock. So
yeah,
we're good.
They know I'm family. I'm good for it. It's great, man. Great talking to you, Cameron.
No problem.
All right, talk to you later.